Hey guys, welcome to Heart to Talk, the podcast. I am the host and creator, Teresa Caesar. My intention for this podcast is to deliver to you wisdom, inspiration, and consciousness through solo episodes and conversations amongst insightful people. It is my greatest honor to bring to you talks that come from the heart.
We've gone through such an enormous time period these last several years. And I think everyone is questioning their lives and what's in front of them and facing their biggest wounds. And what we're all being called to do right now is transcend past those wounds into truly creating the life that we desire. And in that, there's a lot of breakdowns happening internally and externally. But the opportunity that is in front of us is enormous. The opportunity to actually begin to live the life that we have always been meant to live, to really drop those things that are not important and that we've spent many years claiming as important, but realizing what really is important to each of us. This is such a great time period to transcend past our biggest wounds. And we're all being called to do so.
What's an example?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you that if you're not feeling the pressure of this time, hallelujah, you don't need to. There is a time in everyone's life that you will have to face certain things, but not everyone is meant to. However, the majority of the planet is experiencing this. Everyone comes into this world with a wound. It doesn't always get triggered off, but all of us have a wound. And that first wound is usually our separation from source. And so we work our way back towards remembering the source that is us, one with source in all things. But we have to go through a process of remembering that. And the next wound, if that's not the major wound, you're going to work on the next wound, often has to do with abandonment, rejection, judgment. And we'll hit these things throughout our life. So when you're working so hard, like you said, you have, like I have, as many people that I know have been working on this particular wound that they have. And then they made progress, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I'm here again. I want you to know that that is the nature of life. You uncover, as you were working on it before, you uncovered a certain piece that let you get to that next level. And then you got to take a breather and a break. You just breathe through it. And then you're going to, throughout your life, be unfolding pieces of that your entire life. But what happens is it gets easier and easier. You see, one of the most important things in that whole cycle is to celebrate where you have grown. And each obstacle or each piece that you uncover brings you to the next, makes you more capable, more accepting, allows you to open up in greater ways. And it's going to get easier and easier if you can allow grace to come in, if you can remember that it is just part of the process. Those wounds that you keep hitting up against are there to love you. And they're there to keep showing you how to come back to that oneness, that divinity, the beauty and powerful being that you are.
How would someone know that they're hitting a wound? What do you feel?
Truthfully, in these last couple years, even the most sane people drop to their knees with, like, oh my God, I can't. Why? Again, sometimes the most extreme anxiety, that place of just absolute helplessness. And not everyone is like this.
And a lot of times people hide it, right? We hide it.
Absolutely.
So what are some tips to honor the wound?
Have at least one person that you can really be honest with. Find one person that you can have deep, honest conversations, that person who has your back and who you can just be so vulnerable with. In this culture, so many people try and hide these parts of themselves. But I want you to know that I've talked to millionaires and billionaires who people look up to. I've talked to trendsetters, celebrities. I've talked to all sorts of people that people look up to. And I want you to know that it doesn't matter who you are right now, everyone's feeling this pressure. And when you begin to realize that, even though we have to set limits, right? You got to still show up for work. You got to still show up for your family. You got to still look confident. Every single person on the planet has a place where they don't feel confident. They feel they could be doing better. They want to do better. We're a driven race. Humans are driven, and we are really under the illusion of perfectionism. It doesn't allow for normal people to feel, fragile. And we all are fragile.
I love that you said this because I have to say, just this week, I had realized the pressure I low key have on myself, the rules. And I'm over here, I just launched this self love masterclass. And I was like, oh my gosh, poof, epiphany. I am not loving myself. I am so hard on myself.
Oh, Teresa, you know what's amazing about what you're saying is that we often teach what it is that we're going to master. And when we're attempting to master something, boy, we get the biggest lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly it for me. I mean, I'm a shamanic love coach who's been divorced twice.
Yeah. Maybe that's why
And
people are afraid to maybe do things because they're like, oh, I'm not qualified to do it, or I'm da da da. Do you get what I mean? What do we call that? Imposter syndrome?
Yes. And again, I don't know anyone who doesn't believe that there's, someone better out there than them. And because there always is. I mean, the honest to goodness truth is that there's always someone who has some brilliance moving through them. And so, yeah, imposter syndrome is a real thing. I just watched a little video with Brene Brown who talks about this. She's talked to spiritual leaders and leaders all over the world, and she doesn't know anyone who doesn't feel at some point like they don't belong, that they don't know enough, that they're not good enough. So when you look at that, people who are really changing the world in a very vast way and globally, having still the same feelings that you and I have.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I think owning that, but don't get stuck in that story.
The other thing that I want to say is everyone has a gift. And whether or not you choose to share that with the world is really up to you. But most of the time, if you're at that crossroads where it is that you might be wanting to get confident enough to share that gift, the people who will follow you are typically 5 years behind you.
Ooh, okay.
Almost always. You're a little bit ahead of the game. You've learned a lot. And you've learned a lot because you've been willing to share a lot. I have some really amazing talents and gifts, but my students are right on my heels. And actually, the people who end up working with me as my clients or students, many of them have been colleagues at some point because of the fact that literally their gifts push my gifts to keep expanding and rising and serving in a better way.
Ooh, I love that. So powerful.
Yeah.
All right. So transcendence, we talked imposter syndrome. Any tips for the audience?
So, a little tip to help with the imposter syndrome or just not feeling good enough is to take a breath, put your hand on your heart, and actually begin to connect to the scared one inside of you, the one that doesn't feel good enough or doesn't feel like she belongs or he belongs, and to remind them that they belong to you. and that they're good enough for you, that you're always taking care of them. Now, Teresa, what's happening inside you as we're doing that?
I just honestly feel peace, like this resistance left.
I want you to know that for many, many people as adults, this is actually hard. And that's why inner child work is so big right now, because who has time to deal with another child, right? Especially the one tantruming inside of us. But let me tell you that in Ho'oponopono and Hawaiian healing, in the ancient arts of healings that I teach that stem way back into creation, your inner child holds your divine blueprint
Mm.
and is in charge of your physical body. So if you have anxiety running through you, depression running through you, rage running through you, your inner child is having a tantrum. And it lets you actually support that one and remind your little one that they belong and they're taken care of. They will create havoc in your life. Relationship breakdowns, losing jobs, loss of money, diseases. So you want to spend a little time because your inner child actually holds your magic. You learn how to live in the world from conception to 7. So while you're in the womb, you get your mother's information, her DNA, her memories, and you learn how to live life through that way. So hopefully you've had a really, great experience in the womb. Everything was blissful, but we know how life is. So what our mother was experiencing is passed down to us through her womb. But not only that, what her mother was experiencing is passed down through you in the womb.
Mm.
Okay. And so your inner child collects that information and learns to live life from that place. Right. So your formative years are up until about 7, maybe 8 years old, sometimes a little bit further on. And that is the one that you have to guide to health. Now, you as an adult get an opportunity to actually help that one, that little child of yours that actually runs the show inside of you to how to be healthy, how to be abundant, how to be calm, how to be resourceful. So we can no longer blame our families for who we are. We have to literally take responsibility and parent the parts of us that need us now
I love that.
and really guide them to health.
I love that explanation. I like visualize the whole thing. And I was thinking about my own family. I'm all, no wonder. I'm proud of myself working through that craziness.
Listen, Teresa, I grew up in trauma and I still see the effects of it now. I'm 51. I see the effects of anxiety and stress that is a part of my makeup. And I do this work in order to change that, change how I live in the world because I couldn't do it that way anymore. But here's the thing. I have seen those changes in my daughter.
Oh, I love that.
She does not have the same amount of stress, anxiety. She believes that life is here for her. I didn't. I wasn't raised that way. She's powerful and she feels supported in life. And sure, I participated in that. What I really want to say is that I was able to change that ancestral wound. And my daughter, and if she has any children, her descendants to come, they'll be different.
It's like leveling up the family. I just love the word level up. Sounds like all cool.
Leveling up. I mean, that's what we're doing
Level
here,
up.
girl.
The level up
Absolutely.
is real.
The level up is real. And it's real not only physically, but it's real mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychically, and they all have to go together. Really, that's what creates wholeness.
Oh, I love that. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Love it. Love it. So Janice, tell us how we can work with you and about your bomb new program.
Teresa, I am so glad you asked because I created this program called Transcend from Chaos to Calm. And it's a year-long self-paced group program that is going to give people the tools that I've only been teaching my private clients. I mean, really, it's been for my VIP clients. And now I'm going to launch them out into the world to help as many people as possible learn how to be empowered through and by themselves by these ancient tools. One who's worked with me in the past increases their intuition, learns how to create harmony in their life. The truth is that everyone has a deep desire, whether it's to live in joy, live in love, live in pleasure. I know women from so many walks of life who are ready to ignite their life in so many different ways. And for me personally, that's joy and pleasure. I'm committed to joy and pleasure. Then from that place, guess what? Abundance happens, love happens, playfulness happens. So, what is it that you want? This program, it's not for the one size fits all. It is for the woman who's ready to change her life and to do it right now.
Ooh, I love it.
So below, you're going to get a link that is going to give you a little bit of what this program is about. But mostly, you're going to get an opportunity to talk directly with me and see if I can personally help you move from where you are now to where you want to go.
I'll definitely be sure to drop your information in the show notes. Let's transcend with Janice Noehulani.
Transcend.
Level up.
Level up, baby. Leveling up.
All right, Janice, per tradition, we've got the closing questions. And I'm going to go with the first one. What's one affirmation or mantra you say to yourself? What is it?
Mm-hmm. Good always happens to me.
Next one, Janice. Where do you go to find peace?
So there's something called level shifting. In your memories, you go back to a time where you where you felt so much peace, so much joy, whatever it is that you're trying to enact. And you replicate it in your mind, what you were wearing, what you were hearing, what you were seeing and sensing. For me, I was so brokenhearted. I was going through my first divorce, and I remember I lived in Jemez Springs, New Mexico, and I walked to the river, and it was gushing. It was like the water was pouring, and I put my feet in the water. It was freezing cold. And then I started to put my legs in the water, and then I'd actually just clothes on. I laid my whole body in the water, and it felt like it was purifying me from all my pain, you know, and all of my discomfort and all of my worries and everything that was holding tightly on me. So, whenever I need some peace and I'm feeling really anxious, I do some level shifting and I remember that moment. I remember how my feet looked in the water. I remember that cold hitting my skin. I remember how my hands were in the water and how it felt to let that water pour through my hair and how refreshing it was, and how when I came out, I felt like I could do life again. And then what I do is I remember every bit of that moment and I bring it to my now. And I powerfully allow it to wash over me in my now so I can remember, yeah, there was a time before that I didn't think I was going to make it. And look at me now. I know that was a long story, but bringing a moment in time that you can capture and bringing it to your now so you can remember exactly what that feels like in your now. That was it for me.
I felt like I level shifted with you. I'm like, I was feeling it. I'm like, I'm going to bring your level shift to my level shift. That was really powerful, Janice. That's like actually a really, really good tip. Thank you for that. Wow. And the last question, Janice, what have you made peace with?
So I mentioned it a few times in this call about coming from trauma. And not long ago, I was talking to a cousin of mine who was reenacting their experience of my life growing up in trauma. And as I was having this conversation with her, it was the first time I wasn't getting triggered. It was the first time I wasn't disassociating. It was the first time I was fully present. And I realized I'm not that girl anymore. I don't deny that little one who was wounded. She's fully in my wings. I hold her. We talked about the inner child. She's an integrated part of me, and she's not afraid anymore, and either am I. I've made peace with my past. And it's not only my power now, but it's not something I resist anymore. I love everything about me. And every day I'm learning how to love me even more because, as we said, that wound keeps showing itself and I get to decide what I'm going to do with it. And at this point, I am more and more learning how to love it.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Please download, rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. Also, be sure to visit my website at teresacaesar.com to check out my inspirational merch, connect to my social accounts, and much more. May you continue to be filled with wisdom, inspiration, and consciousness. Otherwise, friends, I will be back in 2 weeks for another episode of Heart to Talk.